The Movie Preview Critic. Informing and entertaining your movie world.
Hey, what's up, movie lovers? Hope everything is going well for you and yours. Just wanted to stop by and give you a heads up that this review has some hardcore imagery, blood, guts, swearing, and violence. So I'm introducing a new preview review rating, HC, Hardcore. This will be used for reviews that contain intense visuals, thoughts, and language, and Rambo is a perfect example of that. I mean, come on, we're talking about Rambo. He's a f***ing Green Beret killing machine. So if machine gun, explosive, arrow tip, big ass hunting knife, helicopter, missile, death action bothers you, consider watching this review with some parental guidance, turning your monitor off and just listening to the audio, or rocking back and forth in your chair, wrapped in your comfy blanket, while repeating, "It's only a preview review. It's only a preview review. It's only a preview review. It's only a preview review." There I was, 8 months ago, May of 2007, surfing the net watching new previews, when the Rambo promo trailer made its debut. With one mouse click, my perception of America's soldier was forever changed. Here's what I witnessed. Rambo, now 60 years old, is living in Thailand, driving a boat and hunting fish with his high-tech bow and arrow. Along come some missionaries that want to get to Burma so they can help stop a genocide that's taking place. Rambo's not shy about offering his opinion of their plans.
You bringing any weapons?
Of course not.
You ain't changing nothing.
The missionaries go off anyways, and he returns to his routine until some guy who kinda looks like George Steinbrenner shows up, tells him that the missionaries were supposed to be back 10 days ago, and asks Rambo to go after them. After some scenes of pondering, and shots of the missionary POWs getting mistreated by their captors, Rambo decides to go into action. So what does he do? Yes, that just happened. Rambo f***ing head chops some dude. Oh, but he wasn't done yet. Yes, he minces a guy into a bowl of spaghetti. Oh, and it doesn't stop there.
Please don't.
Rambo pulls a Swayze throat rip that comes from our favorite guilty pleasure, Roadhouse. Swayze throat rip. I just sat there and wondered out loud, why was Rambo going so ape? Maybe hearing me, he provided the answer.
When you're pushed, killing's as easy as breathing.
And that's all this preview was. Rambo breathing and killing. When it was over, I was kinda shocked. When did Rambo become an 80s slasher psychopath? Let's go back to the preview and see what happens when we do this. How about this? Was Rambo always this bloodbath murder crazy? As a kid in the 80s, when I looked in the mirror imagining my future self, I had many role models for the different aspects of my life. Dad showed me how to be responsible and provide for a family. Magic Johnson and Joe Montana were my sports idols. And Voltron was the prime example of how teamwork defeats alien invasion. But when it came to being a man and standing your ground, gaining respect and reputation through strength, courage, and guerrilla warfare, there was no better teacher than Rambo. I don't remember him being such a maniac, but maybe a combination of present-day nostalgia and childhood naivety have clouded my perceptions. The only way to find the movie truth is to go back and revisit the first 3 movies. 1982, 26 years ago, Rambo I, aka First Blood, is a surprise box office hit and introduces audiences to a lonely Vietnam veteran named John Rambo, who at that moment in movie history doesn't really look all that dangerous or action hero-y. It starts quietly enough. Rambo visits a friend but finds out he died of cancer because of chemical weapons exposure in Vietnam. With his last hope for human connection gone, Rambo goes off wandering. He eventually comes to a small town with a head sheriff who busts his balls. So, because he doesn't have anywhere to be or anything to do, and the fact he's been trained to respond to force with force, Rambo challenges him. He gets arrested and is frat boy hazed by the sheriff and his deputies. This brings on some shell-shock flashbacks, which causes him to go berserk and escape. The sheriff, who has something to prove, goes after him, and an interesting chase ensues, car versus motorcycle, without any music, just all natural sounds. That's some gutsy filmmaking. Let's take a listen. If that was made today, here's how it would have sounded. So Rambo gets chased into the woods and goes into survival mode. The sheriff and deputies go after him, and eventually one officer falls off of a helicopter and dies, mainly because he was acting like an asshole, and not because Rambo killed him. This would be a good time to activate our body count meter. Rambo's being threatened, he's in the woods, so there's gonna be some heavy-duty carnage to keep track of. Or maybe not, because Rambo just injures all the officers one by one. He doesn't kill anybody. What the f***? Is this really Rambo? The cops retreat and Rambo hides out. Meanwhile, reinforcements arrive, along with Colonel Troutman, who starts spewing memorable quotes left and right.
God didn't make Rambo. I made him.
I don't think you understand. I didn't come here to rescue Rambo from you. I came here to rescue you from him.
Are you telling me that 200 men against your boy is a no-win situation for us?
You send that many, don't forget one thing.
What?
A good supply of body bags.
What's cool here is that Troutman isn't Rambo's buddy yet. He's more of a Dr. Frankenstein, a guy who created this Green Beret Terminator. He's programmed Rambo to be a lethal soldier, and that's it. Now that Rambo's out of the jungle and back in the real world, he doesn't know what to do. He's short-circuiting, and Troutman isn't here to be a best friend. He's here to contain this human weapon. Just remember, before there was Jason Bourne, there was John Rambo. Let's listen to this scene here.
There's only one man in this room that's got half a chance. Well, that's not because I'm better than he is, but it's because he trusts me. See, I'm the closest thing to family that he has left, and that may be all the edge I need.
Jesus Christ, where do you people come from?
It seems Troutman is even ready to kill Rambo if he has to. So a couple of 100 guys corner Rambo in a cave, blow up the entrance, and everyone thinks he's dead. But of course he's not. He climbs through the caverns, including a rat's nest, and escapes. Eventually everyone finds out and goes after him again. But this time Rambo's not running. He's going right for the police station and that douchebag sheriff. He blows things up, shoots at other things, and in the end makes his point. Then Rambo does something unexpected. He breaks down with an emotional speech.
Oh, he keeps calling my name. I want to go home, Johnny. I want to drive my Chevy. I said, well, what? I can't find your legs. I can't find your legs. I can't get it out of my head.
Then gives up and walks off with Colonel Troutman. This is pretty great and truly courageous filmmaking. What action hero cries and reveals emotional vulnerability? Very different and very cool. Which is why this movie was successful, because audiences had never seen anything like it. Up until that point in movie history, the biggest action hero was James Bond, and we all knew what his modus operandi was. First Blood defied action movie conventions left and right. First, it was more of an action drama. Second, Rambo's enemies were good guys, cops, not some communist or terrorist bad guys. Third, Rambo wasn't a ladies' man. He doesn't even hook up once in the entire film. Fourth, he didn't have much of a personality. Actually, he barely speaks. Go back and watch the movie. He probably has as much dialogue as Arnold Schwarzenegger in the first Terminator, until his final breakdown speech at the end of the movie. Fifth, he doesn't kill anybody. The body count meter is still at 0. Sixth, the film dealt with social issues of the day, returning Vietnam soldiers and the alienation they felt in a country that didn't understand them as much as they didn't understand it. This would be a great character to follow in continuing journeys as he struggles with these personal and social issues, right? Well, Hollywood thought so too, and they greenlit a sequel. So in 1985, with the backing of one of the biggest budgets in movie history at that time, we got Rambo, First Blood Part 2. It starts with Rambo in prison for misbehaving in the first movie. He's visited by Colonel Troutman, who asks him, "You want to go kick some ass?" To which Rambo responds,
Troutman, friend.
He's briefed on his mission by Murdoch, an even bigger douchebag than the sheriff from the first movie. He then gears up in what becomes a classic cultural image. So it's off to Vietnam to find out if American POWs exist, and if they do, he must take pictures of them and bring back the evidence. He meets up with a hot girl, and they discover that prisoners of war exist, but Rambo isn't going to take any pictures. He saves one prisoner and fights his way to the rescue point, where Murdoch double-crosses him, because the politics of discovering living POWs would be too much of a pain in the ass. Rambo is then captured, tortured, and tortured some more by the universal, all-purpose 1980s villain, the Russians. He breaks free, shoots his way to escape, and falls in love, which promptly comes to an end. He gets pissed off that the commies blocked him, and decides to kick some major ass. He rescues all the POWs, and then has a helicopter battle with the super Russian mega chopper, blows it the up, goes back to the base, kicks the evil sensei guy from the Karate Kid movies in the balls, and destroys all the computers, which actually has some symbolism. Rambo raging against the machine bureaucracy that's betrayed him so many times. And then he confronts Murdoch.
Mission accomplished.
After saying goodbye to Troutman, he walks off in the distance with no food, water, money, or technology. Why? Because he's f***ing Rambo. Wow, what a ride, but way different than the first one. Let's compare the two. The poster for the first movie depicted Rambo with an M16. The sequel stepped it up, giving him a f***ing bazooka. Remember how the original started quietly and peacefully? Well, here's how the sequel began. Remember the obscure title? That got changed because Rambo is what audiences loved in the first movie. And why not throw in First Blood Part 2, just to make sure people know it's a sequel? Remember how Rambo rarely spoke in the first film? Well, how is an action hero gonna have any catchphrases if he doesn't talk? So that's gotta go, cause it's time for some one-liners.
Survive a war, you gotta become war.
Murdoch. I'm coming to get you.
Remember the weapons? The knife, the machine gun, and how cool he looked using each one the first time? Here, there's gotta be more of that, as well as a bow and arrow with explosive tips. Remember how Rambo ran into the woods with only a t-shirt? Well, since it's a sequel, let's go to the next extreme. No shirt for almost the entire movie. Remember how the first film was so quiet with just a few explosions? Here, everything can potentially go boom. Finally, remember how Rambo didn't kill anybody in the first part? Well, that. This time, death won't be teaching class today, because Rambo is the substitute reaper.
Best movie death ever!
These changes reinvented Rambo, taking an emotionally complex character dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder and making him an icon, and therefore dehumanizing him. But they also created a non-stop celluloid symphony of bullets and explosions, establishing a cohesive grammar for the action genre, set pieces, pacing, and one-liners. This raised the bar for any future thrill ride cinema. By the end of the movie, Rambo has already become a parody of himself, morphing from a Vietnam vet into a cartoon superhero, figuratively and literally, because the next year, in 1986, Rambo: The Force of Freedom was born. Premiering first as a miniseries, it eventually became a daily show. Unfortunately, because the target audience was children, the creators believed that kids could not grasp the concepts of Vietnam, POWs, or shell shock, as well as anything that happened in First Blood 1 or 2. I guess it's better to teach children not to ask their parents questions about history or the complexities of the human condition. So they decided never to mention it in the show. That is, other than straight up stealing this image for its intro. Let's see, a cartoon show based on a successful movie character that doesn't reference the events or storylines of the source material that inspired it, as well as changing the emotional core of the main character. Who knows? Maybe it could work.
Oh, the General Havoc and Nomad got away.
Rambo, you captured 10 of Savage's troopers, all of Nomad's men, saved the peace conference, a bunch of little kids, the Statue of Liberty, and the Eiffel Tower. What more do you want?
It lasted 65 episodes. So if you want Rambo to kill 32 and a half hours of your life, take a trip to your video store and rent
Rambo: The Force of Freedom.
Most importantly, First Blood Part 2 made Stallone the biggest star on the planet once again, and also made the studio an elephant shitload of money, $300 million worldwide. Which doesn't seem like a lot today, but back in 1985, the only movies putting up numbers like that were E.T., Indiana Jones, and the Star Wars trilogy. Of course there would be another sequel, but would it be able to outdo this one? In 1988, we got the answer. Rambo works at a monastery, stick fighting whenever he needs some spending cash. Troutman and the dad from That 70s Show up and ask him if he'd like to battle the Russians in Afghanistan. Rambo says no, but Troutman goes on his own anyways, and is captured. That 70s Show dad tells Rambo, and the rescue mission starts. He meets a contact and they travel through some pretty cool looking caves so they can infiltrate a really cool looking Russian base. But first they meet some Mujahideen Afghan warriors trying to rid their land of invading communists. Meanwhile, Troutman is interrogated by a crazy Soviet commander who doesn't understand the situation his country's in, so Troutman explains it to him.
We already had our Vietnam. Now you're gonna have yours.
So, you wish to test me?
Rambo and his contact continue on towards the Russian fortress and are later joined by a kid. They blow a lot of stuff up but fail to rescue Troutman and barely escape themselves. The contact and the kid leave while Rambo heals his wound so he can get back to complete the mission. Rambo takes the long way, rescues Troutman, saves some other prisoners, crashes a chopper, and makes his way with Troutman to what seems to be freedom until a mega super Russian chopper shows up with tanks and jeeps and a load of soldiers. How the is Rambo gonna get out of this one? With the help of the Mujahideen cavalry, there's a big anachronistic battle of horse versus tank, which becomes a showdown of Rambo in a tank versus the Soviet commander in a chopper, which of course, Rambo wins. With the enemy defeated, Rambo and Troutman ride off into the sunset. This threequel was bigger in every way than its predecessors. It traded the nurturing jungle for the vast dispassion of the unforgiven desert. If Part 2 sprinkled just a little chopper action, Part 3 poured it on. Before, there was just a handful of Russians. Here, we have a small community. Last time it was huts and a police station. This time, a fortress on a desert mountain. The one-liners keep coming, highlighted by this classic quote.
Who are you?
Your worst nightmare.
And since he's in the desert, he has no shirt for the entire movie again. Finally, the human carnage continued on the relentless pace established in the previous movie. But in the end, it felt like more of the same, and Rambo 3 only made $189 million worldwide. Interest in America's soldiers seemed to be fading, as were the tensions of the Cold War. Once again, Rambo wasn't needed anymore. So now, 20 years later, looking back, it's clear to see Rambo was a killing machine. He never changed. We did. His first 3 adventures shielded us from the horrors of war in their depiction of death. But now, after Saw, Hostel, and other torture porn horror, blood, guts, and suffering are nothing new or shocking. We're finally ready to see this uncensored, uncartoon-like soldier of misfortune. Let's start with the movie's marketing. It's clear about one thing: violence. That's all it wants the audience to know. Rambo is gonna kill a whole lot of motherfuckers. Supposedly, there are over 200 deaths depicted on screen in this movie. With a running time around 90 minutes, that's over 2 kills every 60 seconds. Holy sh**. Now, I enjoy watching machine gun mushroom cloud explosive chaos as much as any action movie lover. But if there isn't any deeper motivation behind the violence, then, well, it kind of loses its power. After a while, it starts to feel sort of like when you're a kid a few days after the 4th of July and you find a few leftover fireworks. Maybe you call some friends over and you all go in the backyard to set them off. It's fun and exciting at first, but you realize deep down it doesn't impact you the same way as it did on the 4th. It doesn't make you well up with pride or whisper a timeless thanks to the patriots responsible for creating and maintaining the country you're celebrating. They're the same explosives, making the same loud noises and bright flashes, but without the invisible, understood, shared meaning the 4th of July spiritually infuses, the pops and booms become just reflex actions of physics instead of the applause and gratitude of a nation. When you think of great movies, and in the case of Rambo, great war movies, you find one thing in common: they all have a deeper meaning. They have something to say, not with words, but through the character's actions, a point of view that is communicated through images, filled with clues of visualized wisdom, discovered and pieced together by the audience scene by scene, moment by moment. Somehow this voyeuristic journey with the movie character creates an inward journey for the viewers, which awakens hidden dimensions of their souls. In movies that nail it, any bullets fired, or grenades thrown, or missiles launched are propelled by Sigmund Freud as much as they are by Isaac Newton. Will Rambo provide us with such a multi-layered physical, mental, and spiritual interactive adventure here? If Rocky Balboa is any indication, the chances are good that it will at least try. To quote real-life boxing legend Muhammad Ali, the man who views the world at 50 the same as he did at 20 has wasted 30 years of his life. If Sylvester Stallone was the man he was giving that advice to, it looks like it's been taken, because a major element of Rocky Balboa was his inner journey. Approaching 60, no doubt he realized that in a business obsessed with young stars, mainly because the target audience for most movies is the 13 to 35-year-old demographic, he had been written off, much like Rocky and Rambo. So he resurrected his 2 alter egos. This time the motivation wasn't solely profit, it was closure. Driven by passion and desire to share how at 60 he and his characters no longer thought like they did at the age of 40, he created the final chapter in the champ's life, focusing on how age is never the end of the journey if you're still dreaming about creating your future. It was kinda slow and sorta predictable, but all in all, a nice way to end one of the major franchises in movie history. It was also a respectable success, making $70 million, proving that audiences wanted to go one last round with their favorite underdog. Was this a sign that they were ready to ride into battle again with their favorite war veteran? Only the box office numbers will tell, so here we are. Expect Rambo to be very stoic and philosophic throughout the movie. He's probably going to move slow, stare at people before answering them, and take deep breaths when considering a decision. Here he holds a cross as he hunches over on his boat. Notice the similarity to Rodin's The Thinker. Rambo is a man with war still raging on the inside. No doubt the missionaries will bring up issues of God, justice, war, peace, and the value of human life, so be ready for some ponderings in those areas. Let's hope that without being heavy-handed, Rambo has some insights to offer on those issues, and on how a soldier survives war mentally after they've survived it physically. I know you might be thinking, dude, calm down, don't expect too much. He's just gonna kill a bunch of two-dimensional bad guys and blow shit up. Which makes sense, but isn't that selling Stallone, Rambo, the audience, and the power of cinema a little short? And haven't we seen enough superficial action in Rambo 2 and 3? This might be Stallone's last chance to prove he's still got it, and that the viewers still want it. It's too late in the game to sell out. The only way to win this Hollywood war is to reinvent Rambo, by going against expectations and taking the character someplace new. With over 200 deaths taking place in an hour and a half, it seems Stallone wants us to be overwhelmed by the horrors of war, and specifically genocide. By providing an uncensored portrayal of what bullets and bombs do to the human body and spirit, he might be trying to negate the notion of heroes, and say whether a survivor or a casualty, they're both victim. Perhaps the key element in creating this will be the depiction of the enemy. It's easy to get the audience to hate the bad guys by showing them mutilating and torturing innocent people. But remember, no matter how twisted, warped, and mutated someone's humanity is by evil, they're still human. They represent every human's potential to journey to that dark side. Will this movie be able to convey how these people became so inhuman? Or will they just be bad guys twirling their mustaches? Now let's talk about the story. It's no mystery how the action will unfold. The missionaries get captured, Rambo fights and defeats the enemy, and they're rescued. It's pretty straightforward. And it's also kind of disappointing. Why? Because Rambo was always there to help the US deal with its immediate conflicts. So why isn't the sequel set in Iraq? Probably because of the budget. Rambo 3 was set in the Middle East and cost $58 million 20 years ago. No doubt the cost of setting this movie in Iraq would at least be double that price. And with minimal studio support for the production, probably because market research indicated that a Rambo sequel would not have Spider-Man or Pirates of the Caribbean type potential for the opening weekend box office, a smaller story with less expensive locations was decided upon. So Burma became the focus. Now of course what's happening in Burma and Darfur is beyond tragic. It would seem that after the horrors of Nazi Germany and Rwanda, atrocities like this wouldn't repeat themselves. But unfortunately, history is not always the best teacher. In many ways, movies can be tools of awareness. How many of us learned about the genocides of the past from history books, but felt and understood the human impact only when watching Schindler's List, Hotel Rwanda, or the recently released Darfur Now? When done right, movies on these subjects can create awareness, enragement, and inspiration to take action. So Rambo could do this for Burma. It's probable that setting the story in Iraq would have created too many political landmines that even Rambo couldn't tiptoe around. But it's hard to ignore some of the initial reaction fans had when watching the trailers. That basically went, "Who gives a fuck about missionaries in Burma?" Or, "Why isn't Rambo looking for Osama bin Laden? He's still #1 on the FBI's most wanted list." After all, in Part 3, Rambo did fight alongside the Mujahideen, a group that later spawned the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. If Stallone wanted to take the story in this direction, he could have used the alternate ending to the third Rambo, which opens up some interesting story potential.
For now, I think I belong here.
I understand, John.
Goodbye, sir.
But that version of the movie will have to exist only in our imaginations. Let's deal with the version that does exist. The movie preview critic rates Rambo. No, wait, it's not Rambo, it's Rambo 4. We all know it's Part 4, and we're probably calling it that already. Somebody tell the marketing department that replacing numbers with names isn't fooling anybody. Live Free or Die Hard is still Die Hard 4. Rocky Balboa is Rocky 6. And Rambo is Rambo Part 4. That's what the poster should have read. The movie preview critic rates Rambo Part 4 worthy of big screen viewing because there's a generation of movie fans that have never seen him on the big screen. However, see it as a matinee. There's nothing here that's worthy of full price admission, especially because the story has no balls. No amount of blood, bombs, and bullets can hide the fact that here, Rambo should have gone to Iraq. This is also an actor trying to keep his career alive by staying on the Hollywood radar, and that's one of the major reasons you want to see it, because you're a big Stallone fan. And if you saw the first 3 movies, you might be suffering from OCFD, Obsessive Compulsive Franchise Disorder. You don't feel at peace or complete until you've seen all the installments of a given movie franchise. Because of the high body count, it already has the making of a perfect movie drinking game. Let's not forget, if you're an action and war lover, this will definitely deliver. And more than likely, it'll be the end of a cinematic franchise. So you'll want to be able to say that you saw the last installment on the big screen. Finally, considering all this, let's have Rambo Part 4 launch our newest segment as we ponder its place in movie history. While it bluntly presents the violence of war in more graphic detail than Saving Private Ryan, it won't be a better all-around movie. And it won't have as much impact on future films as Rambo Part 2 did. But it will be better than Part 3 because it takes the character of Rambo somewhere new. So there it is. Rambo Part 4's place in movie history. So until next time, consider yourselves advised, and as always,
Long live good movies.